Why, hello there, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. My name is Mr. Doggo333, and welcome back to the United Kingdom. Now, last video, we started to suspect that there is a traitor amongst our ranks. Who that could be, I don't know. But we might find out soon enough. For now, let's take a look at Newcastle upon Tyne. Newcastle, once one of the strongest ports of the North Sea, a keystone in the Industrial Revolution, and now one of the 1,000 other industrial cities ground under the heel of the Reich. The devastation caused by the war never truly healed. At best, it was buried under the facade needed for the Germans to keep up their exploitation of the city. This exploitation is not something that will endure. Newcastle may once reclaim its title as England's northern fortress. It's all well and good. I don't think we've done York yet. Let's check out York. Situated at the meeting point between the rivers Ouse and Foss, York has been seen settlement since the Stone Age. Named Eboracum by the Romans, Jorvik by the Norsemen, and Everwick by the Normans, York has felt the mark of foreign conquerors beyond count. For York, the Germans are simply the latest in a long line. The pre-war years had seen the city eclipsed in prominence by Leeds and Hull, largely kept relevant by its railways and confectionaries. Unlike Hull, York was relatively lightly touched by the bombs on the Blitz. The post-war years have seen those railways expanded by the keen interests of Krupp, Thyssen AG. From this junction, York remains a key connection to places further north. York Station being a vital stopping point between London and the Scottish border. The walls of York tell a story. One of empire's come and gone. Krupp logos may dot the city between its beautiful architecture today, but so too did Roman standards and Norman banners. Empires may come to York, but so do they go. Well, it's very confident. Let's see if that confidence lasts. Because right now, we have upticks in activity. Though we've made immense progress over the past decades, and especially in the last few years, the resistance continues to plague Britain, inspiring crime and disorder across the realm. Many within our government have offered solutions on how to fix the issue and bring peace to the land. Each of these have their own strengths and weaknesses, and it's up to us to choose one of their methods and ensure that, in a decade, the resistance will just be a fleeting memory. The resistance reign of terror must end, lest it cause further damage. Nothing on the Isle of Man, is there? I don't think there is. Just Manx culture. Eventually the Bee Gees, right? I think the Bee Gees are from the Isle of Man. Of all fucking places. And all fucking bands come from there. The Bee Gees. The one group of white people who kind of did disco right. And boy, did they do it right. Communists. That's certainly interesting. Hitler is dead. Domville did not take the news well. It is said that he wept for an hour before leaving his study to give an official statement to the press. To Domville, Hitler may not have been perfect, but he was a savior of Europe and liberated Britain. Once our faded fears crept in. Without him, what was to become of the Reich? What was to become of Britannia? To Fontaine, the news was deeply sorrowful, for one of humanity's greatest minds was lost to us. Hitler liberated Europe and allowed the greatest members of British society to rise unrestricted by old morals. Yet beyond this, Fontaine was more concerned for Britain itself. Without his great benefactor, what was to become of the BPP in Britain? How was the new order able to survive without its greatest champion? Well, they said the name of the mod. For Wallop and all the great lords of BPP, the news brought about them fear, overwhelming fear for their future. For though their opinions on Hitler varied and their support for National Socialism was minimal, Hitler brought back one thing back for them: power. Power over the great masses of Britain. Without Hitler's eternal support, the death of Hitler may not just be a death blow for the Reich, but the dynasties of Britain as well. And Butler? He gave his deepest regards to the German minister and gave a tearful address to the press, yet Butler felt no sadness for Hitler. Oh, Butler felt fear. Fear for the stability of Britain and the collapse of the economy. Fear for his own personal future. Yet beyond his false sorrows and fears for the future of Britain, Butler felt a tinge of glee, of happiness for the tyrant who had destroyed Britain, the Britain he loved. And for the public, the great subjugator is dead. And the future of Britannia lies in flux. Britain returns once more to chaos. Well, is that going to mean that chaos can rise again? I think so far, no. Well, Germania's in chaos. We got a lot of 3-day focuses. Wow. Okay. Things are going to be moving very, very quickly. Hitler's dead. Those 3 wars have sent an entire continent into a state of paralysis. The Reich itself is stuck in a political standoff as the status quo was torn asunder. Regardless of one man's personal feelings towards the man, the vacuum left by his death will doubtlessly send all of Europe into shock. As one of the states aligned with the Reich, it is inevitable that we, too, will not be spared from incoming chaos. The economic impact alone of Hitler's death are going to be catastrophic. Already reports are coming in of economists and representatives from the megacorporations panicking and withdrawing their stock. The great storm consuming all of Europe seems to be about to break, and it draws ever closer to Albion's shores. It was a rainy day when Emma and Elizabeth found out that Adolf Hitler had died. They'd been hiding away in the old cigarette factory for weeks after being pursued by police. It was cold. Beyond that, the makeshift bedding they had established with other resistance members on the upper floors made for a surprisingly comfortable living situation. Emma and Elizabeth and old Bill were all sitting together, and Bill was telling them about one of his war stories, how he escaped certain death in the trenches of the Somme using only some rope and a pair of old leather boots. All of a sudden, however, Bobby jumped into the room with a look of glee. He's dead! He finally got and corked it! Everyone else was silent for a moment. They know who he was. Who else? It was Hitler. Hitler had finally died. Emma was the first to say something. He's really gone? The bastard is gone? Bobby nodded. Elizabeth slammed her head onto her mouth, stifling back a sob of joy. He's gone! He's gone! He's gone! The bastard's dead! He's fucking dead! But in hell, Wenka! At this point, Elizabeth stood up and hugged her partner, and they began to jump for joy together, giggling ecstatically. How about that, Bill? You reckon he shot himself, or that it hurt? It better bloody hurt, I'll say. Bill didn't respond, only looking on with a thin smile. It was a relief to see him dead, of course, but it wouldn't bring his comrades back from the dead. And as he saw those 2 girls and that other boy celebrating his death, old Bill couldn't help but wonder one select thing. How many people like them will be lost in what's to come? I'll go ahead. I'll work on retracting some chaos. It had been such a long time since the cabinet gathered with such speed and desperation. Not since the 50s, when it seemed like the entire government was close to collapsing within itself. Now it seemed the BPP was faced with the same crisis, and with their German masters in such a disarray, resistance stirring once again. Of course, the first agenda and sole reason most of them were there was a matter of German succession. Following, at Domville's own request, a minute of silence for the former Führer, the cabinet moved on to who they should recognize as new Führer for the master of Europe. Though there are a few minor disputes arguing over legitimacy and who'd best serve Britain, it was eventually decided to only support the chosen successor, for, at least with him, there was a chance stability may remain at home. After some more minor problems, such as attempting to stop the British economy collapsing, the meeting was adjourned, each cabinet member scampering off to their own little holes. As they left, Domville could only look to his hands, which hadn't stopped shaking since he heard the news of Hitler's death. Despite his uncertainty, despite his fears, he knew he must remain strong. They must keep Britain united no matter the cost, or the BPP was to be laid to waste by the flames of revolution, as the old order was 20 years ago. A final show of respect to the old Führer. Engineer companies. Our GDP is growing pretty well. I'm happy with this. I kind of want to cut down on inflation if I can. I might want to start upping the military. We're going to need it soon. A spoiler alert. I think at least. Well, let's declare support to Hitler's successor. It seems as if there is nobody who could truly replace Adolf Hitler in the hearts of both Germans and, indeed, fascists all over the world. Love him or hate him, the impact he's had over both the Reich and its territories cannot be overstated. Nonetheless, while he's indeed stood as large as a titan, he was a man nonetheless. For the sake of stability, however, we must acknowledge this. The sooner the Reich is stable, the sooner we can return to business as usual. Whoever is chosen to succeed Hitler will be granted our unconditional support, regardless of whatever we feel about them. I don't think we're getting chaos yet, again. No, it doesn't look like it. Oh. There's that. Let's enact some emergency measures. Despite the passage of the Freedom Security Act, Hitler's death means that the resistance will be emboldened, and thus we must redouble our efforts. We must not only expand our use of the FSA, but we also implement martial law, impose heavy curfews, and curb any sniff of radical behavior. Unfortunately, the increased threat means that we will have to turn to the BFC and Haller Cooper. However, many as flaws may be, Jordan is dedicated to helping protect our government, and we need him now more than ever. Some may consider the use of BFC alongside regular police extreme, but it must be done unless we fall to complete chaos. Okay, next up. We'll close the London Stock Exchange. With the fall of the euro, it seems the German economy has fallen with them. The pact economically and politically slapping around them, it seems our economy is following suit. The insecurity and instability sweeping across Europe, the mega corporations that our economy so relies upon have deigned to begin pulling out of Britain. Well, we won't let them run far. With these developments, Butler has thus recommended that the London Stock Exchange be temporarily closed to cancel trading in order to prevent a forex run. From this, we can begin to stabilize our economy and ensure that it does not revert back to the state it was post-war. Okay, Franco-Burgundian War. I actually don't know the timing anymore of this civil war. For 20 long years, the streets to the London stock market had never been particularly busy. Its old pavement, barren on the masses, had once filled it, the street having taken a few years to rebuild from a stray artillery shell during Sea Lion, and its many businesses either being German-owned, struggling, or closed. Despite all this, in his 10 years of working there, Harold could not remember a day when he'd see the street void of all bystanders. Approaching the building, he first noticed that most of the buildings were boarded up, its windows barricaded in steel and wood. The main door had a barricade set up around it, hastily built of tables and chairs from within the building. Barbed wire dotted around it. The strange thing was that, however, the barricade at the front was seeming half done. The human-sized hole offering an entrance into the building, which Harold, with some depredation, moved into the building through. Inside, Harold found the building in a depauperate state. Chairs and tables dotted around the room in various states of disrepair. Papers were strewn about, a few evidently torn up, while most were just left on the floors or desk. Yet most notable and out-of-place sight in the large room was the rather large number of men and women, their weapons a mismatch of German, American, and even old British rifles from the war. As Harold stepped closer, he noticed as more of their heads turned to face him. The youngest one, who couldn't be more than 16, put their old battered gun on him, seemingly anxious to soon. But then the oldest man, in his late 60s, turned to him, offering a small smile before asking him, "You had joined the revolution, then?" Okay, chaos in Ostland. Everything's falling apart in the mainland. Luckily, we're beyond that, right? Right? Alright, let's meet with Wessenmeyer. Edmund Wessenmeyer is a reasonable man, A soldier, a diplomat, a skilled negotiator, he has helped mediate many a dialogue between us and our friends in the garrison, and indeed the wider Reich on the whole. If there's even a single man who can understand the struggles that we're going through, as of now it's him. Thus, we will approach him and ask him to remember all he has done for us thus far, and what he can continue to do to help us. Our position would be much weaker without him, which is something we cannot afford. To see the Prime Minister with the representative of the German Reich has been a rather common occurrence for 20 years of the collaborative government. Yet not for some time did the Prime Minister run into the German embassy with such speed and with such desperation. Almost 10 minutes after Domville's hasty entrance into the building, Domville finally met Westenmeyer for tea, sweat visible on his face. Before Domville could start to politely begging him to stay, pleading with him to remain, to keep Britain from falling into chaos, Westenmeyer spoke up. Domville, in light of the instability within both Britain and the Reich, I have been instructed to remain in Britain until the situation here and at home passes. In this effort, the German garrison will remain in Britain and keep order and security, whatever the cost. In response, Domville could only splutter out quick thanks and praise for the wisdom of the German Reich, giving silent thanks to God for his obvious generosity. Following further discussions on the nature of cooperation between the British and German forces, eventually decided that the German garrison should be temporarily integrated within the British High Command in order to ensure a coercive, efficient military. Before he left, sweat streaking down his face, Westenmeyer gave a final word of warning. I may not be able to save all of the Reich from anarchy, but this island will hold, no matter how much blood is required to do so. One step closer to chaos. Now we'll discuss the garrison situation. Now we are certain that Westenmeyer and the Wehrmacht are staying to help us in defeating the resistance. Our proud German allies know that to lose us to their as allies to the Bolsheviks and their American backers is to allow the snake that is liberalism to creep back into the new order. The professional German army, we have a large advantage over the disunified militia forces of the resistance. Yet if we do not seize the opportunity now, our great advantage will be lost. Thus, we must move to deploy the garrison to unruly areas and crush a potential revolution before it begins. Well, now let's do Knight's sit rep. With all the bad news that His Majesty's government has been inundated with, it's time to ensure the biggest war on our side are dealt with. As such, we'll ask our most loyal ally, Maxwell Knight, to look into resistance and the recent activity. After this, we'll of course ask for suggestions on how to crush these bloody tech traitors, be they a mad Scotsman or a foolish Unionist. For many British workers, the end of the Blitz had only ushered in a new era of hardships. While German planes no longer rained hell down on their homes and businesses every night, a more silent and visible enemy had taken their place. The specter of hunger and poverty crept around the nation as the government floundered in its efforts to rebuild the country, too wrapped in its own internal squabbles and arguments to care. In an environment like this, small businesses suffered, and the green grocery owned by one Alfred Roberts was no exception. A local alderman with a happy family, his business was affected just as much by the post-war devastation. However, he'd still fared better than most had, managing to continue living comfortably. With this in mind, it would thus come as a genuine shock to anyone who knew the family that Robert's daughter, Margaret, has been helping the resistance by making bombs for the last 5 years. She had initially done so out of spite. As a woman of ambition, stifled by the lack of social mobility provided by the government, she felt it proper to use her unused chemistry knowledge towards a cause that would chip away at the establishment that kept her there. But after having met with local resistance members on and off for the past half a decade, Roberts had slowly begun to sympathize with their cause. It was a perfect relationship. Nobody would suspect her as the resistance grew in size and strength. It was a rainy Thursday morning when she dropped her last package off. She deposited a large parcel wrapped in brown paper at her usual deposit point before walking away, acting as if nothing had happened. Little did Margaret Roberts know that she had just set in motion a series of events that would change Britain, perhaps forever. Hell hath no fury. That's Margaret fucking Thatcher. Domville breathed out a sigh of relief as he entered his home. Ever since Adolf Hitler had died, it felt as if the cracks within the party had begun to burn out of control. The German garrison promised to stay and preserve order, whatever happened on the mainland. It was like 1,000 fires were lighting up all over Britain. Still, that was why he was the prime minister, took the job of prime minister. He couldn't trust anyone else with this job, especially since all the resistance seemed to be getting bolder. Damn them all. Didn't they understand that it was better for Britain, and what they didn't want to accomplish in its place? All this violence for nothing more than the destruction of Britain. The very thought of it made him sick. But at the very least, today he could start to rest, and if nothing else, it seemed that Maxwell Knight was making progress on the resistance. Thank God for that. With the instability in Europe, it was more important than ever that Britain remained stable. He'd take the red box upstairs, he could read it there. At least he'd end the day with some good news after today. God Almighty, he'd hoped it would provide him with the strength to see the trial through. Butler, on his own part, had put on his sleep robes and a sleeping cap. As he settled into bed, pushing away intrusive thoughts about the state of the country, a terrifying roar rattled his bones as he fell out of bed, an instinctual primal fear as something so loud, so close, rattled his bones. What in God's name is... He stopped thinking and immediately walked downstairs and out of his apartment. Dear God. 10 Downing Street, office of the Prime Minister. His neighbor's house was in flames. He could see the fires burning within the windows, their flames licking the outdoors. The policemen were frantic, calling for backup, for the fire department, and warning the government. But Chancellor could only look on as Britain's last hope for peace went up in flames. The lions began to tear at themselves. Most aspects of Barry Donville's performance as Prime Minister will be rated at once. Ronald Nalkane became leader of the fascist party. Well, it would seem that Margaret Thatcher killed the Prime Minister of Britain. Margaret Thatcher, revolutionary hero. That is so strange to say. I'm here for it, but anyhow, I can't think of a better place to leave it off than here. So, thanks for watching, gang. I'll see you all next time. I'll keep it short this time. Bye-bye.